business page with Mike Michalowicz, my goodness, he gave a lot of really, really powerful tips, not only like things to do, but also how do you assess what are your actions leading to, and what kind of pivots do you need to make in your business in order to benefit from this situation, and to stay healthy and whole in your practice, which obviously when we do that, that has a huge impact on our personal lives as well. So make sure that you check out, I think it's probably posted below by now, the Facebook Live that I did with Mike Michalowicz, and he has a new book coming out, Fix This Next, which he didn't plan on the timing to be COVID, but the topic is very much about what can really happen, what will really help us now. And he gave a bunch of free resources. So check out that Facebook Live. So this cool cat is driving home from the office a little bit earlier today because flickering lights. Dr. Brian, what's going on?
Well, actually, I'm driving home from my favorite cheesesteak place because I picked up dinner because in our neighborhood, so last night we had tornadoes in the area. We do get them periodically here in South Carolina. And a lot of people were without power, but downtown where I live was okay. And I was practicing for about an hour. The lights flickered and then they went out. And so I was able to practice by the light coming in my windows. And so the beauty about that is, I wasn't able to take money as far as that was concerned because the computers were down, but I was still able to serve people, which was nice. But I could have the conversation with the folks coming in the office and say, hey, it's a good thing that we can still check your spine and adjust you. But obviously this isn't ideal, right? Because, we're functioning, but we're not at our best. And they're like, oh, yeah. And so my point to them was, well, that's your nervous system. And so when we have a subluxation, we do still function. So it's not like we're dead, but we're just not functioning at our best. And so with the adjustment, that's like turning all the power up to 100.
Nice, I love that. And if you think about this, like this storm, and then the impact on the power supply is a lot like our body, right? Like we get hit all of a sudden with a bunch of stress. I don't know, COVID-19, or we get bad news from at work, or bad news at home, or we slip and fall, or some kind of incident, and now it goes in and it causes a flickering of lights in our nerve system to our cells and tissues. And I think a really easy way to have this conversation with practice members, and on the Facebook Live that I did with Mike Michalowicz, he suggested everyone should be sharing tips on, like, do videos and post them on YouTube. It's a pretty uncrowded market, and our practice members are looking for really simple tips. So then you would describe it as, this is increased stress right now, kind of like a storm. And sometimes a storm causes us to lose power. And before we lose power, there's a flickering of lights. And so my question to each of you is, how many lights do you want flickering in your nerve system? Like, what's acceptable, and what lowered power to your cells and tissues is okay with you, like in practice? Or just think about the risks that happen when you have flickering lights in your home. I mean, you could fall downstairs if they're on and then they're off. Flickering lights, your alarm clock could go off, and then you don't wake up when you're supposed to. If you're like us, we like white noise, and so like that turns off, and all of these different triggers that happen from the barrage of a change in flow, of increased nerve interference. So when you had the conversation with your practice members today, Brian, what were some of their responses when you talked about the storm and the nerve system?
They understand. They understand that, what happened with the storm, this was too much for the system. So we had 4 substations go down. We had 2 or 3 of the 150-foot towers go down. And so they know that life's a little bit different. And we got the note that it might be midnight before the power comes on. And so it was all a great conversation to say principle 6 is time. So when patient comes under, right, wouldn't it be nice if they just hit a switch and all the power was on? Well, they have to do some work first before they get there. And so it's going to be a little bit unpleasant in this case for a few hours. With our practice members, it could be a few days or a few weeks, depending on what's going on, in order to get that power up to 100. It's not a light switch process, and they totally get it. And what I was thankful for is, I'll tell that, hey, isn't it nice when they're out and they're cutting trees away from the wires and removing obstructions so that we really lose power only in the biggest of circumstances. So what's that like for us? That would be doing that maintenance of the spine to make sure that we handle as much stress as we possibly can. And then, if something happens, well, then we'll deal with it.
Yeah. And so that when those sudden bursts happen, we have spare, we have spare energy that diffuse the excess in order to continue maintaining well-being of the system. Just like if there was a way to if there had been a way to mitigate the blast, then there wouldn't have been flickering. Or maybe it was like you would have only noticed if you were reading the meter, but not actually once it hits your lights. And the same thing with our bodies, that if we're right up to the edge on so many areas of our life, our physical stress, our chemical stress, and our emotional stress, it doesn't even take a lightning strike to start flickering lights to the messages from our brain down through our spinal cord to all our cells and tissues. Yeah. And so the importance of a buffer. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's what regular chiropractic care is. That gives us a bank account, if you will, of constructive survival values, to where when something happens, we deal with it better than we would have. Stuff is just stuff.
Yes.
But how prepared we are to handle this stuff, well, that's where your friendly neighborhood chiropractor comes in.
And then I love the idea. It's not just like a switch and then it all like comes back on. I mean, sometimes you have to go back and reset things, right? Like when your power goes off, you have to go back and reset them. And that's just like our spine and nerve system. So Dr. Brian, tell us what is the number one message that you keep reiterating to your practice members since about March 1st and this coronavirus thing?
Well, the message for my folks is it's really important that we come together as a community and serve each other. And the best way for them to be able to serve their families, and their work families and their community is to be as healthy as possible. And so I thank them for, on behalf of their communities, for taking care of their bodies in a way that's going to help them keep doing the things they want to do when they want to do it. And, the big message for me, now's the time to be a giver, right? Now is not the time to be a taker. And I think of the Mr. Rogers story that, somebody asked, what do you do in times of trouble? And he said, his mother said, I guess when he was young, he said, always look for the helpers. And so for those of us that are in a position, now's our time to be the helper. And so I can do that by delivering chiropractic care, but then the folks I deliver it to can then turn around and be the helpers in their lives. And this is what's important right now. And I thank them greatly for stepping up and deciding that's what they wanted to do. And then I offer grace for the rest as far as that's concerned, because everybody's got their way of dealing with it. And, that's been our message. Let's keep helping each other. And the best way to do that is having, body, mind, and spirit in a position to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be the strongest member on the team by taking excellent care of yourself and then help carry the load of those who can't or won't.
Right.
I love that. And that goes for all of us. Like, I encourage all of you, stop, breathe, and simplify. Stop, breathe, and simplify. I know over these last couple weeks, if I feel myself like getting into that panic, it's just like, stop, breathe. Okay, simplify. What's the next step I need to take? And it really is just such
Yep.
a powerful message. Stop, breathe, and simplify. And so I encourage any of you who are watching us right now, and if you're in that mode, just stop, breathe, and simplify. And a really easy step that you could even just take right now is, if you don't want to go on Facebook Live or you don't want to do a video message, make a post real quickly about what is one action step that you're taking in order to make yourself better in this heightened time of stress. And I do want to just give one quick, I guess, shout out and message to all the mom and dads out there who suddenly have found yourself home with your kids full time, doing everything, doing the homeschool and doing all of this stuff that you've had help with. Like, your kids, if you're like most Americans, your kids had teachers and they were helping you lighten the load, and they had coaches for their sports team, or a coach for their band, or this lesson or that lesson. And you were going to church and they had a Sunday school teacher or a Awana teacher. That it was a lot of people involved in pouring into your kids' lives, and now it's just you. So number one, that can be hugely stressful. So give yourself grace in that, please. And then secondarily, give yourself grace in, I spoke with the doc the other day, and she was talking about all of this stuff that was happening. And then when it really got down to it, it's like, you know what? I just feel really guilty that I don't enjoy being home with my kids 24/7. Like, I didn't choose the pathway of being a stay-at-home mom. I chose the pathway of having a career while raising my children. And now I'm just with them all the time, and I love them to death. And I enjoy working. And now it's just like everything's right there. And so I just encourage those of you who are kind of feeling that way as well. Like, it's okay. Motherhood and fatherhood looks different for everybody. There is not the perfect recipe, or if you're a good mom, this is the only thing that is a good mom, or this is the only way that you're a good dad. The most important things that your kids need is for you to show up authentically, however that looks, and to be mindful. Like, we've all been thrown into circumstances that we didn't anticipate. So just be graceful, know that hope is around the corner, and be honest with yourself and ask for help. Anything on that, Brian?
Yeah, and I love that. I saw a great meme today that talked about teachers where it said, listen, they're not going to remember the Zoom conferences that they had during COVID-19, but they will remember how you made them feel during a time of uncertainty and crisis. And so, for the parents that are out there, you know what? Do the best you can as far as whatever quote unquote the lessons are. But, it is an opportunity for us. How did we make those people around us feel? And so, yeah, look for an opportunity to serve. And if the world threw you, in with your kids, I mean, yeah, it's hard being with kids. I mean, it just is. It's a lot of work. Anybody that says it's not is crazy. And so, especially when you're not used to it. And so number one, start, maybe it's start a moms and dads at home Facebook group, or just a, pick your family and friends and just do a Zoom where you discuss, hey, this is where I'm, because what I heard from that person is she's being human, and that's okay. As I mean, people call us superheroes in our office, but we're people, and so, just make the most out of it, and just, how were you able to, think about, yeah, it's really tough on you, but think about what your kids are thinking. Hey, isn't it cool? I get to be home with mom or dad, at least for a little bit until we get tired of each other. But at the end of the day, it's how we made those people around us feel during the crisis. We can cry in private if we need to, and but that's why it's great to have the boot camp to rely on, and any other group or tribe that you rely on. Get in there and just have a Zoom, and it's okay. It's okay not to be perfect. I think about 2 or 3 times in my life I said the exact right thing that I wanted to say to my kids. And one of those times was my daughter was talking about, she just didn't feel like she had it in a certain soccer game. You could tell she was trying, but the gas wasn't in the tank that particular day. And I said, Sarah, all I ever want you to do during the day is give 100%. And I said, and here's the thing. The 100% that you got to give is not the same day in and day out, depending on what you got going on. So I'll know if you're not giving 100%. And even if you're having a bad day, I can see you, working as hard as you can, or a challenging day. And that's all I'm going to ask. I said, just give the best you got that particular day, given the circumstances, and put your head down on your pillow and just say, I did my best for today. And that's all anybody can expect from anybody else.
And, I think it's give 100% and recognize that your outcomes may not reflect your give of 100%. Like
Right.
Some days you give 100% and you look and you're like, well, what did that mount to? Well, here's what it mounted to is that you lived up to your own personal standard of I'm always leaving it on the table. Like no matter what, I may not get great results, but I'm always giving it my very best. And I think sometimes, and obviously this is where burnout comes from in practice, when our results don't match our efforts. Right? So when instead we're committed to the action and not the result, then we can always be, proud of ourselves, even outside of the result, simply because we did what we knew to do at 100% in that moment. And that's the name of the game, man. Like if you're on the wrong road or you're doing the wrong thing at 100%, it's going to reveal itself to you. If you're doing the right thing at 100%, it's what Principle 6, time.
Yep.
It takes time. And to Brian's point about think about how your kids are, our kids hear us talk all the time about, oh, I wish we had more time to spend together. I wish they had more time to spend together. And now we're all home and there's this energy of like, why are mom and dad so stressed out? So, I just encourage all of you, lower your expectations about what's happening at home. Give everyone some grace. If it's all right, kids, you know what? Like it's really tough. Let's all just run outside and lay down in the grass. And I got to say, at least in my life, my husband has been really good about this of just knowing when do we need to press pause on that thing and just take a car ride or just go outside for a minute. And I remember my dad doing that when I was a kid, that, he could really sense like, ooh, it's getting really tense in here, and just doing something different for a couple of minutes. Like whatever was stressing everybody out, it'll still be there when you get back, but just take that minute to pause. And if your dishes don't get done, they don't get done. If your kids are eating leftovers for the third night, be proud of yourself that you made an excess 3 days ago. I mean, it's just in the big scheme of life, like Brian said, they're not going to remember the Zoom call. They're going to remember that you wrapped your arms around them and said, I love you. Like you're a really cool kid, or you're a great spouse, or whatever it happens to be. But I think it's just important to overextend grace to ourselves and others at this time.
Yep.
That's for sure.
I agree.
So your dinner's going to get cold if you don't get in. And then Dawn's going to come back and leave a message on my Facebook and say, hey, dinner was cold. So I want to keep Dawn on my good side. So we'll say goodbye.
I appreciate that. She could be quite a hurricane herself.
All right, everyone. Have a great night. God bless you. Thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.